Welcome to the Woman Worriers podcast. You worry, I worry, we all do. If you're paying attention to the world today, there's a lot for women to feel worried and anxious about. As we explore the worries with curiosity and compassion, we learn to live more authentically and unleash the warrior within, someone who is strong, capable, and resilient, come what may. It's time to stop battling against yourself and start using your powers to meet everyday challenges with energy, purpose, and bravery. Now here's your host, Elizabeth Cush.
Welcome back to the Woman Worriers podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Cush, and I'm very, very excited about my guest today, Rebecca Scritchfield. But before we get started with her introduction, I just wanted to say thank you to all the listeners, for all of you who subscribe to the newsletter, who follow me on social media. If you're interested in getting the newsletter, you can go to progressioncounseling.com/Elizabeth's-newsletter. Sign up there and you will get updates on the podcast, my blog, which typically goes out once a month, and any updates on my practice and the coaching practice that's coming. This week's episode is being sponsored by upfinch.com, an online journaling platform with a library of guided journals that are geared toward helping you understand the specifics of your life. Your journals are never accessed by a piece of software, let alone a human being. And stay tuned for a discount code to get you 15% off for the life of your subscription. Rebecca is a well-being coach, registered dietitian, nutritionist, ACSM certified exercise physiologist, and author of the book Body Kindness, Transform Your Health from the Inside Out and Never Say Diet Again, which Publishers Weekly calls a rousing guide to better health, and the New York Times Book Review calls simple and true. Through her weight-inclusive body kindness counseling practice, Rebecca helps people reject diets and body shame to create a better life with workable, interesting self-care goals to fit individuals' needs and preferences, not society's unrealistic weight and beauty standards. Rebecca has influenced millions through her writing, her podcast, workshops, and appearances in over 100 media outlets, including NBC Nightly News, CNN, The Today Show, O Magazine, Real Simple, Time, and many others. Rebecca is a freelance writer for The Washington Post and Self Magazine, an advisor to Health Magazine and Diversify Dietetics, and a mom of 2 young girls. She lives in Washington, D.C., where she was recognized as one of 10 supermom entrepreneurs in the nation's capital. I'm excited to have Rebecca share her insights into how we can incorporate her body kindness mentality and practices into our daily lives. And she's going to share how we can work with those parts of us, our critical parts, our shaming parts, when they show up around food and eating and body size. So let's get started. Hi, Rebecca, and welcome to the Woman Worriers podcast.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, I really appreciate your coming on the podcast and taking the time to talk to us today. Could you share with the audience a little bit about you and what's inspired you to do the work that you do?
Sure. Well, I reside in Washington, D.C. I am a mother of 2 young girls. They are 8 and 6. And I am a working mom. And a homeschooling mom, actually, now recently with the pandemic. We're still in distance learning mode here. So you could say the juggle struggle is real, and I'm definitely a woman worrier myself. But what I do for a living is so special and meaningful to me. It is a way to really help people create a better life, a more meaningful life, a life of more compassion and kindness toward yourself and others. And I created a philosophy called Body Kindness. And the philosophy is about reframing the idea of what what it is we think about when we think about health, and more of a focus on personal and collective well-being. So there's three different pillars called love, connect, care, and more than happy to share more about that later.
Mhm.
But I really created it out of a necessity of me realizing all the times in life I was thinking that I was picking up on healthy behaviors, and especially when it came to food, it was like diets and dieting and magazines and books and all those things that really tried to sell this message that 100% of your health or lack thereof was your control and responsibility. And if you were larger bodied, bigger boned, or, now thankfully we're trying to bring some liberation to the word fat. So, I am a thin privileged person, but I use it as an ally to help take away the stigma, but like if we dared to be anything but the thin Eurocentric young flawless beauty ideal, then we need to spend all of our resources there trying to fix it. And I was part of that. I tried my first diet at 9.
Mm.
There's a whole story happy to share.
Yeah.
But, really what's interesting about it is that at the root of it, I really did care about health. I was fascinated by my heart would beat every day till one day it wouldn't. And I said, well, I want to take care of myself. So the intention was all well and good, but my adventure, I made a lot of mistakes. And even becoming a dietitian and a certified exercise physiologist did not preclude me from continuing to make mistakes, because I was still in this weight normative paradigm where you
Right. Right.
focus on weight loss as the outcome. And there was a culmination of several kind of 1, 2, 3 low points that involved me with clients, my mom's own health decline, and my own sort of personal rock bottom moment. And I just kind of fell to the ground one day after a terrible session with a client. And after I cried my eyes out, I
Mm.
wrote down on a piece of paper, what do I do if I care about health but never want to diet again?
Hmm.
And it was that sentence that eventually led to
Mm.
me creating Body Kindness. I ended up getting further training as a clinical anxiety counselor. And that's a lot of where I ended up learning that a lot of this stuff that I was doing for clients with IBS was actually more likely to be anxiety.
Yeah.
Although there are some cases where the low FODMAP type support I offer clients really can offer some relief, but it's not as many as the clients who end up coming in. And I'm also currently doing some training and development to become a certified trauma informed professional as well. So I've
Mm.
been studying acceptance commitment therapy and internal family systems for years, and they show up in the Body Kindness philosophy in kind of like small and subtle ways.
Mhm.
But I'm really, my own personal involvement has become in just expanding the fragility of what it means to be human and playing whatever part I can in helping people make sense of their lived experiences, and also, more and more their parents and grandparents, and just to try to
Mhm.
lean in with a sense of curiosity and compassion about what's happening now, but also in looking forward. And what is it that I could do to make my life a little bit better? And this very moment, it's my hot chamomile tea and conversation with you. And later it will be fun with my daughters. But, I couldn't even think about that kind of stuff when I was counting calories and in the apps or doing the weight loss plans. It was only about my
Yeah.
body being good enough or not.
Well, and I find it interesting that you said that when you described that session with clients, but I was thinking about my own work with clients too, with women who are working toward, feeling more positive about their bodies, and that I can still get caught up in does healthy mean losing weight? Like, should that be the goal? And having to quiet that part of me that
Mhm.
wants to go there, because we've been drilled into our heads that like weight is the measure of healthiness,
Mhm.
especially for women.
Mhm.
But I think for people in general, like I can think of clients in particular who are very reticent about going to the doctors because they're sure that even though they feel they're doing all the right things, that their weight will be the thing that the doctor focuses on and says, this is what you have to fix.
Mhm.
So, how is this diet and diet culture really just messing with our heads and our
Mhm.
bodies?
Yeah. I mean, what I have learned is that it's something that's been in existence since before we were born. Often William Banting is cited as the author of the first diet book because there was this pamphlet that just sold crazy amount of copies back in the day. And it was this letter on corpulence. And he kind of laid out, this is what I did to lose weight. And what's fascinating when you actually look at the text from as neutral standpoint as you can, and there's a really good book out that's called Diets and Diseases of Civilization. And Adrienne Batar had wrote that as her thesis, her PhD thesis. And she was on my podcast. And so I got to learn a lot about her, specifically about Banting and the things, it was like, drink alcohol every day. Like, who wouldn't want that? Right. And there's like no bread. And then even now you could see threads. If you Google the right terms, you could see that people are still, they're like citing Banting and they're blending like Banting with keto and intermittent fasting, because it can't be just one thing. So like nothing dies in diet culture. It's just repackaged and, resold as this vulnerability. And, but what I could see back there is that William Banting was fat shamed, and so his pamphlet made all this money because he had this secret to not being punished by your fellow citizens. And now what we're trying to help our culture do is try to be kinder to one another. Like, what if we cared about a collective well-being? The truth is we don't know anything about a person's health or well-being or economic status, any really social determinant of their health by looking. And yet, we can't escape what we've been culturally conditioned to believe. And actually, Sabrina Strings, who is the author of Fearing the Black Body, The Racial Origins of Fat Phobia, her book really opened up my eyes to the exact time and place where the medical establishment started to really notice that they could gain a lot of profit from weight stigma. And, they used to be concerned about people being underweight. And you can even find these ads of weight gain shakes they used to sell to women for curves. And,
wow.
Yeah. And just, now the reason why your clients are in tears and avoiding going for their pap smears or, mammograms or whatnot is because when you go into a doctor's office, it's considered a screening to get somebody's weight. And so it's considered a health screening, but it is optional. And if they have the higher BMI status, that's the body mass index, which I call in the book the BS measurement of inaccuracy, because the way it was created was a sham. But, insurance companies will pay a doctor to have a weight, i.e. health conversation with the person after getting a weight without even talking boo about their self-care habits or their stress or if they're depressed or suicidal,
Oh my gosh.
They just get the reimbursement for talking to them about their weight must be horrible based on their BMI. And so it's incentivized in the doctor's process. Think about what happens. You go and you check in, update your insurance, go in, somebody calls your name and they weigh you first. They don't say, hey, this is optional. Would you like to know? Now, I can tell you, my doctor, which I have the privilege of being in a really affordable, like you pay a yearly fee, it's less than $200, but but for some people that wouldn't even be,
an option.
I grew up on food stamps, so we didn't even have health insurance, but so I'm just calling myself out, even saying that, wow, things have changed for me. But in this plan where I am, it takes insurance and there's concierge aspects where you can text and say, hey, what's this rash? Do I need to come in or not?
Right.
But my doctor, a female, she'll say, hey, if you want, I could fill out what your recent weight has been, or I could leave it blank. Or if you want to know, you could hop on my scale. And it's not even like the typical medical scale. It's literally like the Walmart
step on the floor scale.
It's just so laid back. And so we know it's possible, but it's just not the process. And it's not the process because when medicine adapted this, literally the war on obesity, that became a thing. There was even a time, when would it have been? Like maybe 2006 and between 2006 and 2008, because I was early in discovering health at every size and learning about intuitive eating. It's before I even created Body Kindness. I was just like, I can't ever do this again. And there was this ad campaign in Georgia that was these black and white photos of these kids looking absolutely miserable. And it's like, I could die soon if you don't take care of me, or like, but it was very much blaming kids based on their size and like
Oh,
black and white and very evil looking, and not at all. It was supposed to be a public health message. It was
right.
not at all about access to healthy, affordable food or simple ways to prepare healthy, affordable meals or safe sidewalks and safe places for kids to play. It was about, we're going to take a kid, put a nasty look on their face, and
Mm,
we're going to threaten these adults like, you are doing this to kids. And whereas there have always been higher weight kids and there's always been higher weight adults.
yeah.
And even if there have been changes over time, there's genetic factors, there's environmental factors, there's many, 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 many reasons. But one thing we do know is people cannot hate themselves healthy, and shame doesn't make anyone healthier.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have thin people not doing healthy habits, thinking they're fine, and higher weight people saying, like, what can I do to make you happy or make myself happy? There's so much suffering
Oh my
in
gosh.
the world of weight stigma. And, but if I had to simplify it, and this long-winded answer, a big part of it is profits. It's, at least in America, right? We were kind of built on capitalism, and it's just a huge market.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a hard thing to resist.
It is. And if you just like would to pop into random conversations, I mean, it comes up so often just in people just chit chatting, right? Like, what diet are you on? Or have you lost weight? Or, oh, you look good, you're so thin. Or, but the reality is, I mean, I was stunned by the statistic in your book that was like, what is it? Like 95% of diets don't work or something? Is that like, that's crazy. And we're
Yeah.
still doing it.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's interesting. And some places will cite like a little bit of a lower number. It's still 80 some. So it really all depends on which, report are you going to look at.
Mhm.
So when I talk about in the book, it's like, yeah, a doctor says, here, take this pill, but I guarantee you it's not likely to work. Like you're going to have some reservations, but it's like when it comes the new year or just something hot and fresh is out, it's on social, a celebrity is doing it. It's like, here, take my money.
Oh, yeah.
And-
I remember my in-laws going on like the cabbage soup diet or something like years ago. And I was like, you're going to eat cabbage soup like every day, all day. And you're going to like that.
Oh yeah. It is like a wolf in sheep's clothing, or, it's like, oh, I swear this isn't a diet. It's Whole30. This is a healthy lifestyle and
Yeah.
anti-inflammation. Or the thing is, if it promises weight loss as a long-term outcome that will benefit your health, your physical and your mental health, then it is a diet because it's centering weight loss and it's relying weight loss as an outcome. So somebody say something like the Mediterranean diet, right? And in that context, it's meant to be the way of eating. And there is a good amount of research that shows that the Mediterranean eating patterns can offer a lot of health benefits. And some of the things that I like to point out is that it might be fish forward, but it's not necessarily meat free, and it might be plant based, but there's, it's it doesn't have to be vegetarian or vegan. But what's also super notable, and one aspect I wrote about it in the book because that data was out, but it was this acknowledgement that there's a lot of other ways of living that aren't very American, like lots of vacation, plenty of time to eat your meals, enjoying relaxing time. And they were really acknowledging a lot of other mental and physical health benefits to the way of living that you're not going to get from food. And then recently, after the book was out, but something that I have stayed very interested in is the idea of that when you look at the social factors, that there is consistently a cutoff, when it comes to your economic status, so no amount of salmon is going to get you out of poverty. It is not going to make you free from the negative health effects of poverty. And, that's why health needs to be more social justice informed. That has to be our future.
Yeah.
And, we do need to separate health and well-being away from the demands of smaller sizes. And that doesn't discount that people say, oh, well, recently in the pandemic, I noticed a weight gain trend and I just feel physically uncomfortable. You can hold space, right, for an individual's experience and talk about like, can we explore like what might be underneath that, right?
Mhm.
So it's not to say that nobody ever gains or loses weight. We all have a range in which our body will store energy and will relieve of energy depending on behavioral habits. But when you're talking about like people who are at the higher, ends of the BMI, even if with intensive lifestyle, there's research, it's called the Look Ahead study, all this money the NIH threw to this intensive lifestyle to see if people with diabetes would have fewer heart attacks and live longer through this intensive lifestyle. And they had to stop the study several years early due to futility, which basically meant we're wasting our money.
Hmm.
Even with intensive lifestyle interventions, people are still going to get heart attacks and die because basically we get older. And
Our heart doesn't
interestingly,
work as
I know,
well.
right? Yeah, we got to die of something. And also, very interestingly, people did lose weight in the first year, and there was a big difference in how people lost weight, but they steadily regained it in years 2 to 5. And it begs the question of how intense of a lifestyle you're asking people to follow and who's going to pay for that. So there's
Right.
many, many very interesting questions. And what it all boils down to, what if we just worked on our oppression and we did not judge people based on their weight, shape, appearance, based on how much exercise they get, based on how they eat. And what if we said, hey, we are all humans together. We respect each other's body autonomy. And that's a huge personal value of mine, which even includes if you want to diet, that's your body and your choice.
Mhm.
It's just if you're feeling that you're at this rock bottom place or that this isn't really gonna create the better life that you want, then I want to help hold the space for your pain and the
Mhm.
grief of all the time and money and effort and energy and mental space that you gave to something that was very futile and painful. And then I want to help you problem solve and strategize for what's next. Because I really believe every individual is wise and they're going to heal themselves.
Mhm.
They need partners, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. People to walk with them on that journey, and
Mhm.
yeah, provide the support, encouragement, some guidance.
Mhm.
I love that you incorporate mindfulness and some of the IFS language, the sort of
Mhm.
compassion and
Mhm.
caring and curiosity. But there
Mhm.
there are parts of us that I'm very familiar with my own parts of that, like parts of us that want to shame us around the food we eat, what our body looks like. I know for me, I turned 60 this year and my body has changed. And too, with the pandemic,
Mhm.
the way I coped was I bought myself really good chocolate and ate
Mm.
some every day, which was amazing. But I did gain some weight too.
Yeah.
So I have been recognizing too how often that voice of, do you really need that? Should you be eating that? And there was a period of time where I used to like hide my candy, even in my own family where
Mhm.
nobody was going to take it. But I felt
Mhm.
that I couldn't be open about what I was eating.
Mhm.
So, how do we work with those parts that want to show up and really just, uh, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting in the book, I call them like thought bullies, because it
Yes.
feels like they're nagging us and so one is like the tantrum toddler. Why can't I have all the toys? This isn't fair, and then the inner critic, of course. And that's one of it hurts us the most. And
Mhm.
you suck. The thing I love IFS and Dick Schwartz and the people who've been training me along the way. And it's it's been very helpful on my personal journey as well. And it's this
Mhm.
like being able to say, all my parts are welcome. You
Mhm.
know, thank you for being here. And to be able to acknowledge that they are offering protection, that they
Right.
are trying to help is such a powerful relief. When I work with clients with eating disorders and they're like, wait a minute, you want me to thank bulimia? Like, no, I'm here to stop it. Like,
Yeah.
before they run
Yeah.
out the door, it's like, we'll do a guided dip in. And it, becomes very, very clear that our burden parts are really just trying to get our attention. And I find myself called to share personal experience with some of my parts and just even how nuanced it could be. Cause yeah, even the experts, were like, oh, we could find these interesting insights. And
Sure.
so for me, there was this phase where, so with both of my girls, so they're 6 and 8 now, but we co-slept with the girls, and my younger one actually never left the bed. And then the older one came back in. And so, my husband and I talk about it and we roll with it. And doctor's like, as long as everyone's getting a good night's sleep. So it's still been pretty much our, routines of the girls and I will fall asleep, do some meditation, fall asleep together. And there was a window where I would have difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep. And when my anxiety peaks, that's usually what happens. And so I would get myself out of bed and, oh, you got to go check in with your husband. Like, it's time to see what he has going on. So I'd go upstairs and he's, first of all, watching TV, which I don't even like, but like the blood and guts, like drug movies, like the worst.
Yeah.
Nothing I want to watch,
nothing that's going to help you go back to sleep. Right?
Right, exactly. And then I go and sit on the couch. I do the little chit chat. And then seconds later, I'm up going through the cupboards and, grabbing whatever, and going back to the couch, and my heart's beating fast, watching the guns go or whatever,
Yeah.
And there's this part going, oh, well, he's doing something he's enjoying. And you don't even like this, and then I'm crunching on the whatever, or, the smooth, creamy ice cream or the crunchy chips, whatever it is. And then I would say, yeah, you're kind of worked up and you're not even really tasting this. And you really do feel tired. So I was trying to do all this sensing and I finished snacking or whatever. By the way, I'd already brushed my teeth with my girls before bed, but I would say to myself, oh, it's okay. 'Cause you don't diet, Rebecca, right? You don't diet. You don't do that stuff. And then I get myself eventually to bed, having not brushed my teeth a second time. So I'd wake up with that like pasty mouth. And then I'd be like, God. And so there was curiosity and compassion, which is very, very far, right? In a body kindness practice to be kind of stay engaged and all that, but watching yourself do these things. So my parts they'll use my values to get to do what they want. So that when I finally got back into some yoga and I felt more stable, and I was like, it's interesting how that part really just did need to soothe with food, but any sort of, oh, this doesn't really feel right because you're not really tasting it, or it's like later at night and you're normally sleeping. Any sort of advice from like a different monitor part, it'd be like, oh, but you don't diet. And that's all it needed to do to just get so it could do its thing, because it was hitting me at this real important value. So anyway, if anyone's like, oh, she really has it all together, just know that, right, we are humans. We make our own mistakes. And totally. If getting a connection to those parts can be super, super helpful no matter where you're at. And, the other note that I wanted to make, because people can feel really like blaming themselves, like, why did I do this to myself? Or just very, very angry, is that to know that the burdened parts that are getting you to bully yourself, saying mean things, saying you're never going to find love, happiness, or respect, or that you caused your own diabetes even, or whatever might be happening.
Yeah.
Those burdened parts are also, they're doing whatever it takes to help you get any amount of social power you can get. Because we are not in a culture that loves everyone no matter of their size, or loves everyone no matter of their health status. You mentioned turning 60. Right. We berate people as they age. We make them unworthy and useless members of society when they're the most wise, incredible, and helpful and loving members of society. So our culture has it wrong. Right. And so I invite every listener to look at culture more fiercely and push back more fiercely against what's wrong in the culture, and look toward yourself with love and kindness and compassion. So if you think about giving yourself fierce love, be fierce and angry and mad, and turn that sword of anger out toward the culture and the harms that it perpetuates. And then turn the love toward yourself, and you'll start to feel better. And then you could do things from there.
I love that. I love that so much. One last piece that I wanted to touch on. So much of your book reflects back on like sort of this journaling process of, kind of allowing yourself to be with your feelings, be with what's coming up, and not journaling like diet journaling. You're not counting your calories or marking what you ate that day, but you're just helping yourself through this sort of as an extra support. And how
Mhm.
do you find that helps the clients? Because
Mm.
I
Mhm.
love journaling anyway. So
Yeah. It was really important to me that in the context of the book that I would give practical,
mm,
meaningful activities that people could take immediate action on. And it really has to do with wanting to help people develop insight to grow hope and confidence that you really are the author of your life and you really can do a considerable amount to improve your happiness in the fleeting state, like if I'd like to enjoy some hot chocolate on a cold afternoon
mhm,
or a bowl of in season strawberries, anything like that, anything simple like that. But then also sort of the long term that life is meaningful, that, when you live your values, when you connect to other people. And so I feel like with a journaling prompt, we can just let our brains get creative and explore and kind of think. So I remember when I talked about exercise, it's like no reader needed a exercise lecture from me. And we all know certain things. And I managed to sort of dip in some facts like, yeah, most people don't really move enough. And so, because we got to like look at truths, right?
mhm.
But it's like this prompt of like, can you remember a time when movement felt playful or fun or joyful? So it's through, if you can prompt people to connect to something, either from their experience or I think this sounds good to me. It's like we can create this space for positive emotions and imagining something positive and joyful and helpful. And it's through that state of optimism that is likely to lead to taking any kind of small or swift, meaningful action. And then that alone, it changes the brain chemistry for a bit. It's like, oh, that feels good.
Mhm.
Oh, that counts as I'll ask the client, tell me that if they're not very active, but they're like, yeah, I know I need to explore it, but I just have so much resistance to it. And, even without going super deep onto all the, bad gym class experiences or
Mhm.
embarrassing moments around movement that might have existed, without even going too deep on any of that, it's like, well, okay, well, if we were to think of the absolute least amount of physical activity that you could do within a few days, like the absolute minimum, what would it be? And it's like they feel so confused that they even have a say in the matter, right?
Oh, right.
And
Yeah.
and then they're censoring themselves, like, I don't want to give my number. Then they'll say something like 7 minutes. I'll be like, great, 7 minutes. And they're like, oh my gosh, well, I felt myself saying 15, 15, 15 to 30. And then I just said, no, tell her the truth. I was like, all right, 7 minutes sounds fine. If you want help, we could find out one thing to do
Mhm.
for like 45 seconds and we can come up with 7 1 things on an index card and you could try it out and see. And it's like, yeah, clients come back with this index card. It was like, with this permission that if I was going to work out, that this is the 7 minute plan, oh my gosh, Rebecca, but then I did it twice in a row. I turned
Right.
7 into 14 because I actually was really liking the music I was listening to. And I kind of felt a little more confident. So it's things like that you can get there through
Mhm.
starting by thinking about what sounds good to
Yeah.
you. And you're kind of already in this inner caregiver energy. And, yeah, you'll hear the voices, not good enough, and you're never going to get to your goals. And just understand that they're going to be there until they learn how to help your caregiver lead. And so you just thank them and you do your 7 minute workout or your 1 minute workout, whatever your
Yep.
thing is.
Yep.
And yeah, and you learn and grow from there, really and truly.
Mm. Yeah. Such great insight and just the idea that your inner caregiver can grow and lead with
Mhm.
these small steps is really so great and amazing.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you have to have full permission. Like your pace is the pace. You don't have to
Yep.
do it all at once. So you might decide that you want to start with sleep because you recognize that when your sleep is off, it's just harder to even get through the day.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you don't need to feel bad at all that you're just eating whatever you want and you're not exercising or you're just doing whatever works because what you have the emotional energy to focus on is sleep. And that absolutely is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about diet culture and stuff. It's always the quick fix and the 12-week plan and the 1-week plan or the whatever. And our brains respond to like urgent solutions because we want that relief now. We want that promise now. But really and truly, think of anything in your life that you really value as meaningful and important. And you'll see you've lots of signs of your strength, your resilience, and your own capabilities. And it's really what body kindness is about too, is just discovering your preferences and realizing your own capabilities and that you have had it all along. You just kind of needed a different way of looking at things.
Yeah. Yeah. That those resources are in there, but we have to give them the support and the space to show up.
Yep.
Yeah. So I just want to also acknowledge your book is beautiful. So many books today are like the pages feel gross and they're not nice paper. And it really is a beautiful reflection of the body kindness too, to just have this really lovely book to walk through those steps. So how do people find you? How would listeners and readers want to find your book?
Sure. Yeah. So the book is available everywhere. And so, see if it's at the library if you want, or try to support your local retailer, but you can find it everywhere. There's an audiobook and ebook as well. I read my audiobook. So if you like the sound of my voice, turn the page, turn the page with the sound of the chime. So there's that. And sometimes folks will get the audiobook and then they'll see that they want like the journaling prompts too. So it all just depends on how you prefer to absorb the content. But I also have a website. It's called bodykindnessbook.com. And from there, you can click through some of my podcast themes. And there's kind of a free program that you can get started. And you could read a chapter of the book, but also get my emails from me. And I'm lucky if I get 1 or 2 out in a month. And it's usually things I'm reading about, some inspirations. And if I happen to have any groups that I'm running, I'm going to be running some groups in 2021.
Nice.
So the communications like that. If you are into Facebook, I do have a Facebook group. So when you sign up for that free program on my website, you'll get the invitation to all those other links and everything. But
nice. Well, I will include all those links in the show notes. And I just really appreciate your taking the time to talk to us today and share your insight into body kindness.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. And hopefully we have fewer women worriers and,
yes.
or at least
enlightened
from the
worriers.
Right? Yes, exactly. All right.
Thanks.
Take care.
All of us enjoy the company of a person you consider authentic. But what is authenticity exactly? Part of the answer is that an authentic person isn't pretending to be somebody else. What doesn't get discussed often is that this requires you to know who you are. A really authentic person is someone who is an expert about them. At upfinch.com, they believe that if we don't take time to consciously reflect on our lives, it will never happen. Instead of floating to the next temporary island of comfort, they want you to be clearly defining what you want and how to get there. You get a free month subscription when you sign up and get 15% off for the life of your subscription when you enter the code WARRIORS. You can find them at upfinch.com. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Rebecca. I am enjoying her book. I'm going to continue to read it because, as I mentioned, I am definitely working through and recognizing, becoming more aware of some of my own messages around body shape and size and firmness now that I'm aging and my body is sagging a little. I'm working toward more body kindness for myself. And so I hope that you will check out her book, Body Kindness, Transform Your Health from the Inside Out and Never Say Diet Again. Her insight into how to work with those shaming parts, as well as how journaling can really enhance our experience and create greater insight into ourselves and our feelings and our motivations, our values. So you can find all of Rebecca's contact information, where to buy the book, the resources that she mentioned in the episode in the show notes. Go to womanwarriors.com and you will find her episode there. I hope that you all have a wonderful week. I hope that you will take time to be kind to your body this week. Ciao for now from this Woman Worrier.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Woman Worriers podcast. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Music was written and performed by Andy Cush. If you'd like more information on this episode, you can find the show notes, the resources shared today, and links to the guest profiles at womanwarriors.com.